Okay, what I'm going to be doing is showing you how to install the 18TZ in the Fortec, but when I recorded it and when I was editing, something happened and the audio just did not go through. So I'm going to have to go through the video and show you everything. Sorry for the bad quality, but it's the easiest way for me to do it. So what you're going to need is you're going to have the 18TZ obviously right there, as you can see. And with that 18TZ, you are going to need to take out 3.3, of course, or 2.5 if you have it. And you are going to need to have the 18TZ, either the bump start version, starter box version, or the pull start version. I'm not sure if that one's compatible with the pull start version, but the bump start is definitely compatible. And you probably want to take the pipe off, make it a bit easier. And you are going to need the 40mm flywheel, or the flywheel for the bump start version. And with that flywheel, you're going to keep the existing collet that comes with the smaller flywheel. So there's the standard collet, bit that goes between the shaft and the flywheel. So you're going to keep that, and you are going to need a pilot shaft, which is the HPI M5 pilot shaft, I think for the RS42 or something like that. And with that shaft, you are going to have to grind it down where the thicker end is, where you screw it onto the crankshaft. You're going to have to screw that down to, well, until it has about 3 or 4 millimeters left of it. But don't go by measurement, because that will tell you nothing. Just go by how far you can put it down and how much gap is between the end of the clutch valve and the flywheel. So you're going to want just a little bit of a gap. Not so much that you can hear it touching and making contact, because that would be terrible, but enough so that you don't have so much of a gap that the clutch shoes, they're going to be wearing really retardedly and they're going to end up coming outside of the clutch valve. So you want just that little bit of gap. It's probably about 1 millimeter of a gap. Could be less. You probably want it to be less, but it's going to be really small. So with all of that, you are going to you're most likely going to have to grind down the crankshaft as well. I've grinded it down to a total length there, sticking out. It's about 10 millimeters, 1 centimeter. So you're going to probably want 12 millimeters, 13 millimeters or so, and that will give you enough room to screw the pilot shaft onto the crankshaft. And with that, fast forward, you are going to put the flywheel into the slot where it's going to stick out of the bottom of the chassis, and then you're going to slide the engine into the car chassis, and you're going to make sure that the flywheel sits on the crankshaft itself and the collet. You're going to make sure that the collet's there, otherwise the crankshaft is not going to, or it's going to be stuck to the engine crankcase. And before you put the pilot shaft on, I had to use a washer between the pilot shaft and the flywheel, because when you put the pilot shaft onto the crankshaft, it's a lot of shaft, it isn't quite large enough to hold onto the flywheel. It's a bit of a soft material, so it'll just chew right through it and it'll end up coming loose. So I had to put the the washer in between so that it holds on nicely and doesn't slip, otherwise you're going to have major problems. So once you have the pilot shaft on there, you're going to want the clutch bell, and with the clutch bell I only used one shim, one of the shims that it came with when it had the 3.3 engine. Shush. So I only had to use one shim because I cut down the pilot shaft a little bit too much. So I ended up with the clutch bell hitting the flywheel. So in my case I had to use one shim. You probably should use one shim, but you could get away with using none, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's not something you would want. So once you have that, you're going to put the clutch shoes in there. Doesn't matter which way they are, but because the engine spins counterclockwise, if you look at it with one shoe on the top, the hole in the shoe is going to be on counterclockwise. If you have the hole in the shoe on the right side, you're going to have better bite, so it's going to have a quicker takeoff. But if you have the hole on the top shoe onto the left, it's going to be a much softer engagement. So it's going to be a less torque, more smooth. And once you have that on, doesn't matter which way, just preference, I guess. With the screw that holds on the clutch bell to the flywheel, no, not the flywheel, the crankshaft, you're going to have to cut that down because it's a bit too long, that I found. So don't make it as short as I did. It was ridiculously short, but make it short enough so that it fits and holds everything and you can screw it in tight without making everything too loose. So once you have that on, you're going to screw that on, and then once you have that on, you're going to put the 2-speed transmission in, and then should rewind it. You're going to need to put that giant ass C-clip, whatever you want to call it, you're going to have to put that in. Now right here I had a little tool that I was lucky to have, and it's got two little teeth that go into the holes of the C-clip, and you can stretch it so you can put it into the groove that holds it in. And with that, you're going to put that on in between the teeth of the clutch bell, and then you're going to screw the engine on, but don't tighten them up all the way. You're going to want to tighten them and then back it out so it's loose, so you can move the engine, because you're going to want to adjust it once you've got all the gears set in. And then you're going to put the wheels back on and try and set the gear mesh by hand or by eye. And then, as you can see, I'm jerking it backwards, and when you have a good mesh that's not too tight, it's not too loose, it's the gears, they're going to spin, not for too long, and they're not going to make a real sound. Otherwise, if they do, they're not going to spin after you stop pushing, and that's going to be really, really bad. So you're going to push the car back quickly, and you're going to make sure that it's spinning nice and freely, it's not too far back. I'm running out of time. And then once you have that set, you're going to tighten the engine in, and then once you've tightened it in, then tighten it up all the way, and then check again for the gear mesh, make sure it's not too tight, and that's it. I have the 3.3 carb on it because I didn't have the slide carb from OS, but it's compatible, but I had to put 2 O-rings just to make sure that there was a proper seal. And that's it. Now I should stop.